walked in my studio, I did it for the joy. Now you might feel it take too long, but we gon' fight and keep on marching to our dream, yeah.
Welcome, everybody.
Hey, it break my heart every time I turn the news on and see the police shot another young brother black. You know we had a mother, father, grandmother, brother, sister, but you see him as another black boy. Now you might feel it take too long, but we gon' fight and keep on marching to our dream, yeah.
Come on in, we're getting started. Look at all these people just pouring in, my goodness gracious. Woo! We're gonna have fun tonight, y'all. I cannot wait. Hello. Salt eaters in the house. Oh my gosh, look at all of you. This is so freaking exciting. Thank you for being here. We're just gonna give everyone a few minutes to get in because, you know, life is crazy. The day is crazy. Oh my God, I can't even keep up. What's up, Oscar, Becky? Oh my God, I just like seeing all your names pop up. This is so fun. We'll let folks get in.
Can we just be grown, man? You acting like a gotta boast and gotta hold hands, man. You gotta vote, man. That's your only voice.
Okay. But a few more seconds. Let this thing pull up. This is awesome. I think I just saw Flynn Smith here. What's up, Flynn? Okay. I think we should probably get this party started. So let's dive in and let me just double check and make sure that the YouTube is streaming before I get started. Otherwise, then we'll go. But just the beginning. Hi. So for now, while we just double check the YouTube, one of the things I want to make sure to be very clear about is tonight is a town hall, and the best way for town halls to work is if we're all in community and conversation together. So just to get the party started in the chats, would you go ahead and just drop in the chat one book you've purchased or requested from your library that you got because of a bookstagrammer? Just one title. You don't have to go crazy. I know some of you get a lot of books, but let's just do one title because of a bookstagrammer. Any bookstagrammer. Oh, I'm seeing so many. Black Buck, Heavy, Yoke, The Bluest Eye, The Girl with the Dragon. No, The Girl with the Louding Voice, Mexican Gothic. Holy cow, y'all, this is dope. Look at all those titles. Oh my God, Cerulean Sea, Red, White, and Blue. Okay, while you guys throw that in there, I'm gonna go ahead and give a little introduction to everybody. So first of all, my name is Traci and welcome to the State of Bookstagram, a virtual town hall aimed to focus on discussing the power and purpose of the world of Bookstagram. I'm the host of The Stacks, which is a podcast about books, which you should all definitely subscribe, rate, and review. Hey. And I'm also the host for tonight. The goal of this town hall is to come together to work through some issues we see and to ask questions that spark some resolution, but also maybe some imagination. Just to get the conversation started, we already started the conversation. Okay, here's the deal. Tonight is going to be very special. We have some guest speakers, we have a little panel conversation, and then we also have a bunch of time for Q&A. I'm going to do my very best to keep this at 1 hour clean. You know I love a rule, so we'll see how that goes. And just heads up to everyone who's over on YouTube and also folks in the chat. I obviously cannot keep up with the chat. I'm already like going crazy, but do keep talking in the chat. I have some folks, I'm calling them my street team. They're some of the other organizers for tonight. They're going to be watching the chat. They're going to be looking out for questions and conversations to bring to the table at the end of the evening. So just know your voice is being heard. You can also use the little question functionality at the bottom if you're watching on YouTube, or if you're watching on Zoom. We also have a resource that we're dropping into the chat right now that is a link for some other articles that you can reference, just some hashtags to check out, and just some like a little bonus info, because I know sometimes we talk about all sorts of stuff and then people are like, what are they referencing? So we have just a few articles that are being dropped in there. Okay. This is the other important part. I want to make sure that we set down some ground rules and lay a social contract for the event. So the rules that we are agreeing to engage by and the ways that we agree to behave in this space, just to ensure that there's safety and dignity for everyone who's present, especially the folks who have volunteered to speak. So first, I want to say tonight is a collection of individuals speaking about their experiences and understandings of Bookstagram. Each person is sharing their unique experiences and perspectives. No one here speaks on behalf of all of Bookstagram, all of publishing, all of any imprint or any publishing house, on behalf of all authors or all booksellers or any other group who's present. So these are individuals who have volunteered their time to join us tonight. They're not speaking on behalf of others. What makes this community so worthwhile to me is this collective, diverse group of opinions and experiences. And so tonight we plan to honor that through the conversation. Next is the town hall. Of course, as I've already mentioned like 5 times, it works best with a group of engaged, well-read citizens. And if you're here tonight to talk about Bookstagram, I'm assuming you're the most well-readest of the most well-read. Tonight is about people coming together in a place of curiosity. We're trying to listen, explore, name, sort, and sit together. We're going to ask questions that lead us to answers, information, transparency, and probably, if we're being honest, a lot more questions. And then the last thing that I want folks to keep in mind as far as our social contract tonight is that any attempts to harm, harass, or belittle any person in the chat or on the panel will not be tolerated. We've got some moderators standing by should we need to remove anyone from the event. My hope is that we're going to give the moderators the night off. Okay. Last little thing, and then we'll carry on. What is Bookstagram? So I wrote up some of my definitions. These are, again, just my definitions. I'm sure you could come up with your own, but some of the, and you can throw them in the chat if you have other definitions of what you think Bookstagram is. First and foremost, I guess really it's a hashtag, which is sort of crazy. It's also a collection of people who use Instagram as a platform to engage with all things books. It's a force in the publishing industry that uses images, videos, reels, stories, and live events, book clubs, buddy reads, and other creative means to influence and shape the literary landscapes for millions and millions of readers. Bookstagram is a tool used by publishing, booksellers, and authors to market and promote their books. Bookstagram is a community of people who are committed to using books as a way to improve themselves, question the status quo, and transform the world around them. And lastly, Bookstagram is a group of people who have found friendships, community, and deep bonds with one another through books. So with that being said, our first guest tonight is Crystal Forte. She is the woman behind Melanated Reader account. Crystal is a teacher, a PhD candidate, and an Instagram live interviewing legend. And she's one of the people behind last summer's smash hit buddy read, Let's Get Stamped. Crystal is here to share with us about that experience and the impact she saw through her work. Crystal, let me bring you on up, girl.
You ready?
Go ahead.
Well, hello, y'all. I am Crystal, the reader behind Melanated Reader, and I have hosted buddy reads, author chats, giveaways, online reading challenges, and more through my platform. This summer, of course, I got to co-host the Let's Get Stamped buddy read with my partners, Pages Galore, Nia J, and Books T. Henny, Oscar, and it was a smash hit. I cannot believe how many people we got to participate with it. We thought it was just going to be 100 or so people, but it became a worldwide legendary event that everyone who came into contact with us got to experience. Through our event, I was able to host different challenges, and of course, all of the participants voiced their excitement, and we even had a location challenge where we were able to get people from all over the place, Italy, Indonesia, Dominican Republic, Saudi Arabia, and the Philippines, all kinds of places and beyond, just to name a few. So we hosted a pre-party first, which it was all the way live, and we had a great time. And then we went into our Zoom session. So of course, my mindset said we need one mid-conversation and one at the end. So we were able to host 2 Zoom sessions for adults and 1 for the kids. And to get the kids involved meant everything to me as an educator. And it meant so much in their lives. And we're so proud of everything that this buddy read became. We were also able to host several several giveaways, y'all. We gave away so many books by Black readers, Black writers, and of course, putting those in the hands of readers was another dynamic impact that we made within the community. I am elated about the turnout. We all are, but of course, we received no compensation for this. It was free labor. We did it all summer long, but the overall learning experience is one that I could never take back. So I don't regret any of this. And the literacy experience that it gave the kids, I'm still hearing back from parents whose children were highly impacted by reading Stamp the Remix, and they can't wait to do it again. So of course, this has forever changed not only our lives, but also the kids' lives. What can I say? Stamp from the beginning, we sold out Amazon twice. We sold out Books A Million. We sold out most bookstores, and I can't wait to do it again. But, we shall see. Thanks, Tracy.
Thank you so much, Crystal. That's awesome. Okay, we're gonna move on to our next panelist. If you missed out on the stamped read along though, like it was major. Just saying, it was major. Okay, next up we have Christine. Christine is, let me get my notes up because I gotta nail this appropriately, you know me. Okay, Christine is, okay. Christine is why am I blind? I'm trying to be really cute. Okay, here we go. When you do a podcast, you get to edit this out. So, live is not quite my jam, but I'm working on it. I'm trying to get to my Oprah levels. Okay, next up, we've invited Christine Bollow, who's the Programs and Marketing Manager at Loyalty Bookstores. Also, in case you didn't know, Loyalty Bookstores is our gracious host for the evening. This is their Zoom that we're using. So thank you so much to Loyalty Bookstores, to Christine, and to Hannah. Christine's going to be sharing with us her experiences with Bookstagram from her perspective as a bookseller. And you can also find Christine on Bookstagram as the reader behind Reading is Magical. Okay, Christine, you are up next. Let me remove Crystal and bring you on up.
Am I up now? Okay, great. Hi, everyone. Like Tracy said, I'm Christine. I am the Programs and Marketing Manager for Loyalty. And just I thought it'd be helpful for people to have some insight into what I do and how I use Bookstagram from a bookseller perspective. So when I'm planning our events and our programming calendar and doing proposals for events, I look at what books bookstagrammers are excited about. It helps me decide, okay, how many books are we going to order for the event? I know Hannah looks at that for ordering front list books, things like that. It's really helpful. Also, if it's a newer author, someone who maybe we haven't worked with before, having those, like the buzz and the excitement, it really helps us get excited for the author and for the book as well. I've also noticed that when bookstagrammers share about our event, it helps with attendance, it helps with book sales. I know other booksellers have similar experiences when we've had our bookseller conferences. In the chats, everyone's always talking about what bookstagrammers they love and how they read, so-and-so book because of this bookstagrammer or that bookstagrammer. And another thing to think about is, these are our people. These are the people supporting indie bookstores. These are educated people who are, if they have the means, they are more likely to support independent bookstores, Black-owned bookstores, queer-owned bookstores, and those authors. And when they participate and engage in our events and our stores, we see it monetarily, and it just makes the event feel more successful, as far as just creating that community feeling. So yeah. Hearts for Bookstagram.
Thank you so much, Christine. Thank you so much. Okay, so now we're going to go into our sort of panel discussion. We've invited a bunch of publishing folks who work in publishing, as well as some bookstagrammers up to have a conversation and talk about the experience. So I'm going to start pinning everybody up. Give me 1 second while I pin you, and I'll introduce everyone once we all get there. And while we wait, why don't you go ahead in the chat, just let us know where you are. I forgot to ask where everyone was coming in from. So where are you coming in? I see Philly, very fast. Philly was very fast there. Okay. I think that's everyone. 1, 2, 3. Yes, 9. That's my magic number. I hope if I fuck that up, someone is waiting in the waiting room feeling very bad. But so now to talk about our panel. And this is the part of the conversation I'm very excited about, because this is a chance for us to kind of get to talk with one another and get a sense of how everything is going. That being said, again, respect, curiosity, questions. So our panel discussion is a group of bookstagrammers and publishing professionals. We have Sarah, who's the reader behind @Bookish and Black. We have Reggie Bailey, the reader behind Reggie Reads. We have Sienna Farris, who's the VP of Multicultural Marketing at Simon and Schuster. We have Andrew Duncan, who's the Director of Digital Marketing and Content Strategy at Hachette. And Andrew, I think I say that wrong. I don't know if it's Hachette or Hachette, so please don't cancel me. Which is it?
It's all good. It's all good. It's Hachette.
Okay, conflicting. We have Lucia Brown, who's the External Relations Manager at Feminist Press, having a moment. We have Erin Coffey, who's the Senior Vice President of Communications and Events from MacMillan. We have Laura Gonzalez, who's the Marketing Assistant at Catapult, Counterpoint, and Soft School Press. And we have Mary Joyce Perry, who's the Digital Marketing Manager at Holiday House, Peachtree, and Pixel Inc. Thank you all so much for being here again. And we're just going to get started with questions. So Laura, I'm going to have you start us off. Can you just start off by quickly sharing 1 or 2 of the ways that you've seen Bookstagram exert influence in the book space and what you think works well?
Oh, yeah, definitely. I think one of the biggest things that I've seen that's been like really effective and like inspiring is whenever I see like a swell of support around like a book and an author, and just like propel it into like, you know, everybody's like feed, everybody's reading it, you know, everybody's, just like reading it and talking about it. Like Retransition Baby is like a recent one that I've been seeing all over. And yeah, I think that's just like one of the most. And
I love that.
I love.
Thank you. So one of the things that I know a lot of folks on Bookstagram, when I asked what things people hope we talked about tonight, was ARCs, which are advanced reader copies. And for many people in Bookstagram, it's a way to get early access to books. It also helps people to develop their following and build a voice. However, I've noticed that there is not always equity in how these books are shared among readers. And that there doesn't seem to always be much rhyme or reason and who gets books and who doesn't. So Andrew, I was wondering if you could share sort of how you approach the sharing of ARCs and connecting them with readers.
Yeah, certainly. Hi, everybody. It's great to be here. And I have to say, first of all, I can't speak for all of Hachette. I'm just at Grand Central Publishing and imprint of Hachette. So this just goes for Grand Central, I'm sorry to say. But what we don't really, what we do with ARCs is we send them to anybody really who requests them. And we'll send them, we'll send them hard copies if they requested. If we run out and other people want them, we'll use NetGalley. So we don't really try to keep any, from anyone. You know what I mean? We'll just send them to anybody who wants one. Like, happy to have you read it.
So you'll just, if folks reach out to you, you're happy to just send them around.
Absolutely.
Got it. And Lucia, how do you all approach that for Feminist Press, which is an independent publisher?
Yeah, it's a very similar strategy. I would say for us as an independent press, each galley we print is a very precious object. We're printing anywhere from like 50 to 100 galleys. So that's pretty small, I think, in the grand scheme of publishing. But if anyone reaches out to us and wants to get their hands on one of our books, that's like the most exciting thing to me. And so we try to send books out to anyone who asks.
Thank you. And I know this is a question that I truly have no idea the answer to. So I'm hoping one of you does, and if not, we can get the answer and share it with the public later. But Sienna, I'll start with you and we'll see if you know. But I'm curious what's being done to ensure that ARCs are being sent to own voices readers, and whether that looks like prioritizing by race, sexuality, ability, and also country of origin, because I know many international bookstagrammers have a hard time getting books, and I'm curious sort of if you know the rules behind that, because I've heard so many different things.
So I'll just answer from my experience at Simon and Schuster. So again, I'm in corporate marketing with multicultural marketing, and each imprint has their own strategy, but we're trying to be more cohesive and strategic about it. And so definitely if anyone wants an ARC, they can have it, but also we're working on a centralized database where we have different bookstagrammers by their needs, but not only just obviously BIPOC, but also what kind of books they like, because we're not a monolith, right? So just because you're a Black bookstagrammer, you might like historical fiction or you might like, thrillers. So really trying to get granular in that way. And we also try to look at every single title as something specific and unique, and really thinking about the bookstagrammer's audience, how they engage, if this is a type of title that they would like. So that's one of the things that we're really trying to work on there, and just really being more strategic about it. But of course, if someone wants it, and then we're working on it being more transparent about having a very visual place where people can ask. So there's that one part. For the international piece, unfortunately, we can only just send books to US and in Canada only. That's just the rules that we have, just from a from that perspective. So that's unfortunately why we can't just really do international. I mean, Simon Schuster, we have other divisions. So there's like a UK, and sometimes we're publishing the same books and sometimes we aren't. And so that's the way you can tap in, but that's just the way it's really working. So we always welcome suggestions, but again, we're really trying not to think of Bookstagram as this monolithic type place. Like how are we specific? What is the audience? What are the interests? And where's that community and the alignment, if that makes sense.
Yeah, that makes total sense, and it's really helpful. Mary Joyce, could you speak at all to how it works at your publisher for international readers, if it's similar or if it's different?
Yeah, I'm nodding along with Sienna a ton, because everything that you're saying is exactly how we're approaching ARC distribution. We're trying to be really specific, and every book is different. It's kind of the fun part about marketing books, is that each piece has a different audience. It's going to be the exact right book for a different person. So for international, yeah, what Sienna talked about with, for example, a different publisher might be publishing it in the UK or anywhere around the world. So that's that's a rights issue. That's something where we can't send a US copy of a book internationally if the local publisher in that country is also publishing the book. And for example, what if our book had a different cover? We wouldn't want the US book to be marketed in the UK, for example, when they're trying to sell a book that looks different, or the title might even be different, that sort of thing. So that usually depends on on rights, who owns the book in which country. And I think Sienna mentioned something just now about how that can sometimes be different for Canada. So that's a little bit different. Sometimes we have rights in Canada, and sometimes that'll be something where if there's someone who's in Canada and we're selling that book there, it'll be just the same as the US. But that's the main kind of reason for international folks not getting the same book, is because someone else owns the book there.
That makes a lot of sense. Just really quickly to interrupt, people who are watching, who are in the Zoom, can you put the questions in the question and answer box? Because we will circle back to these, but if you throw them in the chat, they might get lost. So please go ahead and put them in the question and answer box. Thank you. Kind of transitioning a little bit, one of the topics that I know that I've been very vocal about and that I'm very passionate about, and I think a lot of people tonight are at least curious about, if not slightly more than curious, is the different ways between bookstagrammers being compensated versus influencers in other industries. I feel like beauty and lifestyle is a pretty obvious one. And I can speak for my personal experience that when I have been paid for most of my posts, it's been from brands who are outside of publishing. Sarah, would you be able to sort of speak to the disparities that you've seen in Bookstagram and other influencing areas?
Yeah, for sure. So like you just mentioned, in other industries, beauty, fashion, fitness, you really have the ability to get paid at any level, whether you're a micro influencer or whether you have a really big following. And that is often based on your ability to sell products or your engagement level. And I think that what Bookstagrammers have kind of been trying to open a conversation about is that a lot of us, most of us, whether we have 500 followers or 5,000 or 15,000, we have that engagement. We have a proven relationship with publishers and the ability to sell books, but there hasn't been the transition in shifting budgets. Recently, statistics came out that 72% of major brands have shifted their marketing budgets to prioritize the influencer marketing, but we're not seeing that same transition in publishing where we're able to, be compensated in the same way that other influencers are.
Can I answer this question? Because I came from beauty and I'm now in publishing. So I've dealt with influencers in both areas. And I will say within beauty, which is very similar to publishing, we would send out makeup or cosmetics to different, influencers. And if we just sent that makeup out and the person posted whether they liked the lipstick or whether they liked the mascara, and they just posted content, we were not paying. That was just like when we're sending out books, like when you're sending out books for review, that's not a paid transaction. Because it's also viewed almost as like media. So just like when we're sending out books to different media outlets and it's not paying for a review. So that's the way that they look at it. And so within publishing, what we're trying to just really do is we understand that you guys are also doing a lot of work and it's a mutual beneficial relationship. You're getting books and content from us, but also just really trying to find where that level is from a paid perspective. So there are times when we have paid with using like an agency that's really going above and beyond sending the book and doing deeper levels of content integration or deeper levels of engagement, whether it's events or what have you. So there's one area. So then for us, what we're really trying to do is just really trying to explore and see beyond that review perspective, where are some of the areas where we can actually get into the point where you're paying. And so we are looking into that, and there's some partnerships that even from my multicultural perspective that I'm working on, where there are going to be instances where someone is being paid for that work because it's really doing some very deep, extensive type of integrations. But I will say for you all, what I think is really important is if you're going into this place where you're not just like, taking a picture, where you're really, like you're saying, selling books, is making sure for yourself that you're being able to prove what you're worth, right? So you're saying, this is what I bring to the table. I have this many followers. My posts get this many engagements. If I put in tracking codes into this link, I'm driving this amount of traffic. I'm able to show conversion, because when I'm getting to a point where I'm have to like split a media budget and giving money, and so I'm putting you against, okay, I'm putting this money on Facebook where I know for sure that I'm going to be able to track that engagement. Or if I'm putting this money on this magazine platform, they're telling me this is the media kit and this is how many impressions and this is the KPIs that I'm getting. So it's really important for us to be able to see that from you all. So then we can actually put budget against it. Because otherwise, how do I just know? Even if you have, like you're saying, you have 500, someone might have 500 followers, and you're putting that post on it, but how do I know that engagement is leading? And no one's expecting just because you're putting that post on, okay, you sold 10 books. We know it's a whole multi-touch, and someone saw it on Bookstagram and they may see an interview and they may see a radio or ad or what have you, but it's still about proving your KPIs and that engagement. So that's just what I would want to say about that.
Thank you. That's super helpful information and advice for folks, I think, to be able to track what they read. And obviously, you can't track everything. If I post something online, I can't say that so-and-so went into their local bookstore and bought it. Whereas, if it's a lipstick that you're selling through Amazon, it's a little bit easier. But again, you could also go into the Sephora. So I see kind of.
Right. Exactly. That's what I'm saying. No, but just when you're engaged or what have you,
Totally.
like being able to prove that.
Totally. I'm curious, one of the things that Sarah brought up was sort of like the way that budgets have shifted in other industries. Erin, I'm curious if you could talk about that, because one of the things that I notice when I do receive ARCs is that they say very clearly on them Bookstagram or social media marketing. And oftentimes I think that that ends up translating to just sending the book out. But are there parts of the budget that are allocated to pay the people who are proving their worth or who are able to sort of add value that's outside, you know, like a cover reveal or a reel that promotes a book? I know recently there was a huge reel push for Amanda Gorman's new book, not that you published it, but just in general. So could you speak to that at all?
Sure, and I'm sort of talking in general at MacMillan. Everything that Sienna said is, you know, also very similar to how we approach it at MacMillan, which is the notion of when we're just sending a book out to promote it, you know, there's no real expectation of posting, and you know, and especially because if we're getting reviews, we don't want it to seem like we're sort of paying people to, you know, review our product. And so I think that's always something that we've had. I will say we've occasionally worked with either third-party influencer companies or work directly with some influencers to solicit payment, but it's on a really limited basis. And I think kind of along the lines of what, you know, Sienna was talking about, it's something that we're just beginning to look at, and really helpful to have all of this feedback. And part of the reason we're here tonight is sort of to listen to what others are doing and sort of what the best practices are in the industry, to see if we should be looking at that deeper. But to go to your question, I think a lot of times when you see that, we're really focusing on, okay, this is the audience or the community that we're sending, that we're reaching out to give a book to or something like that. And for the most part, we're not diving too deeply as yet onto the deeper part of that. But we definitely are sort of watching and seeing what else is. And I think, like Sienna said, you know, the sort of deeper engagement, you know, separate from the review or just sending the product out, where there's a deeper engagement with an audience, or, you know, where there are those KPIs, I think that's something that would be open for consideration.
That's so great. Thank you so much. Reggie, my next question is for you, because I know there's a lot of differing opinions on Bookstagram about when and how people should be paid. Can you sort of speak to how you see it, or what you see that folks are asking to be paid for, just so that that's sort of clear?
Yes, you know, folks are asking to be paid for, you know, cover reveals like that was just mentioned, right? I've seen that asked because when you're doing the cover reveal, the publisher usually is giving you a specific set of directions to follow, a specific set of directions that they have probably researched, and they know if you follow these, this will result in, you know, great sales for us, right? Perhaps even a giveaway. You know, the giveaways are a lot of labor for the people who do them, right? And you usually have to do those by a certain day, and it's usually suggested, at least in my experience. And, you know, any other instruction maybe that the publisher will tell you to follow. Of course, you know, if I slide in the publisher's DM and I ask for a book, you know, for example, Man Who Lived Underground, right? If I just receive a copy of that and that's all I ask for, I don't want to be paid for that. That's fine. You just sent me a book. But if you want me to do more, if you want me to, for example, go live, I don't even know if Richard Wright's grandson has a live, but if you were to suggest, you know, go live with Malcolm Wright, maybe that should come with a payment, because the publisher wants me to do that for a reason.
So, and I have a question about that. And so, and just trying to get an understanding, which I totally agree if you're doing the labor, but I'm also wondering if we're providing you with access to the author and you're having the live, or we're giving you books for a giveaway, is that not bringing engagement also to your channel? That's what I'm just trying to ask. Like, is it a mutually beneficial? Because if you're not necessarily, does it not necessarily bring engagement? This is just a question that I have, and I'm trying to get an understanding. Is it not mutually beneficial?
I'm going to hop in and kind of answer a little bit from my experience, which is oftentimes I'm asked to do a live or to do something, and I actually have a much larger following than the author. And so it really isn't mutually beneficial, because oftentimes authors don't necessarily have a large following until after their book comes out. So if it's a debut author, and even some bigger authors, you know, they're not on Instagram as much because that's a visual medium, and they're killing it over on Twitter. And so, and I also think, like, you know, the time because the book sales do lead to money for the publisher and the author and potentially the bookstore, but it doesn't necessarily lead to any money for the time that the bookstagrammer put in. So to me, that's sort of why I feel that those kind of events should be paid, because there isn't, you know, if I'm speaking on behalf of a bookstore on a live, that's different. But if I'm speaking on behalf of the Stacks or myself, there should be some form of compensation for my time and my labor, especially because, you know, I got to come up with all these questions.
I definitely feel like I'm seeing in the chat, definitely instructions equal. I'm just curious, I'm just asking from the, and I think that's a really fair thing to bring back. If you're saying, again, like you have a bigger audience and the author doesn't, I was just actually just very curious about it.
No, it's great. I'm so glad that you asked, because I think that there's lots of, again, tonight is about curiosity and questions. There's so much, you know, and also transparency. I feel like there's so much differing going on between folks that it's good just to be able to sit here and talk kind of publicly as a group about this. So thank you for asking that. I do want to ask sort of, who was like, I had prepared, oh, Mary Joyce. I had not talked to you about this, which is how do you sort of envision this going for a smaller press, like being able to pay and being able to compete with some of the larger publishers, because I know that that's a concern as well.
Yeah, definitely. And I think when we talk about our budget and, you know, where we're going to be spending money and how things are shifting to more and more social, more and more digital, I think that this is a huge conversation that we're having. But yeah, we definitely we don't have quite the same impact or reach, whereas a smaller house, we can't, you know, be reaching so many Instagrammers so that it's on everybody's feed and everybody knows about this book. So for us, it kind of just gets back to, you know, what we were talking about earlier, where for a smaller house, it has a lot more to do with reaching the exact right people for the book. And so if there's an influencer, if there's a bookstagrammer who they're the exact right person, their people would love this book, then I definitely think that's a conversation we are absolutely having on our team about, you know, what should be paid. And for us, it also has to do with, you know, the volume of posts too. So that's something I would actually be curious to hear what you guys have to say about that, because you brought up events as something that, you know, that's something that having compensation is really important. But one of the other things that came up for us was if there's multiple posts, if, you know, they're doing more than just, you know, posting a picture of the book, but, you know, for us, like a children's book, they've, you know, doing activities with the book, or if they're doing something else with the book that's, you know, a little bit more labor intensive, you know, that's something that we're definitely having conversations about how to compensate for that kind of post, where we can have the biggest impact with a smaller budget and with a smaller list.
Thank you. That's really helpful. I do want to wrap this up because we have to get to the question and answer section, though I feel like we probably could do this for like a few hours, just like talking and chatting. And I appreciate everyone being so candid. Sort of just, I guess, I don't know. I had a few more questions, but I'm trying to pick my last one, which is always the hardest part. Normally on the podcast, it's just what's the book you would recommend to the president, but that doesn't feel appropriate right now. So I guess we'll just end sort of, Reggie, what do you sort of hope to see in the future from publishing when it kind of comes to this? Like, what if in a perfect world, sort of what does this lead to?
So in a perfect world, this leads to, hey, Traci, we would like for you to do a giveaway for revival season, which comes out next month. When you do this giveaway, you know, this is what we want, so on and so forth. We offer this amount of compensation for this. Once again, perfect world. That's what I would like to see. Or Traci, we like for you to do an interview with Monica West on live this day, this time. It comes with this payment. And of course, from there, you can negotiate, right? And also too, this is a bit different from what, you know, we're talking about with posts, but eventually, if you see that, you know, someone is doing an amazing job on Bookstagram, especially in this crowd, considering a large part of it is BIPOC, and publishing has this diversity issue that's spoken about every year. maybe even consider bringing some of these people, some of these readers in to be a part of your house. I'm sure there's some role that we can take on, whether it's marketing, publicity, perhaps some of us maybe even work our way towards editing, acquisition, who knows? But getting in the door leads to a lot of different possibilities. And I feel like Bookstagram is a large talent pool for that.
That's that imagination I'm talking about. So we'll wrap up the panel for now, but the panelists and myself will all be here for questions. I do just really quickly want to acknowledge that Penguin Random House chose not to participate in tonight's panel discussion, and instead they sent a statement as to why, which you can find in the Google Doc link that we'll drop again in the chat. And I do want to thank so much, truly from the bottom of my heart, because tonight probably would have been a big dud if not for everyone who you're seeing right now who chose to participate. Our panelists from MacMillan, Hachette, Simon and Schuster, Feminist Press, Catapult, Peachtree, and also the Bookstagram representatives. So before we get to question and answer, we do have just one more special guest, which is, I mean, I know we're not supposed to pay favorites, but one of my favorite authors. Don't get me fired. Don't tell everyone else. I mean, I love you all too, but this is the author of his American memoir, Heavy, How to Slowly Kill Yourself and Others in America, and his forthcoming re-released first novel, Long Division. So, oh, now I can't find you. Where did you go, Kiese? I'm gonna find you. And
I'm right here.
I'm gonna pin, I know you're there. And I also appreciate you not wearing I appreciate you not wearing your Lakers hat. Okay, here we go. There he is.
All right, we good? You hear me?
I can hear you. Can you?
All right, yo. So they gave me 3 minutes, y'all. I just want to try to do this in 2. When I started trying to get my stories into the world, I was told by publishers, editors, and agents that there was no audience or community for the kinds of stories I wanted to tell. Those publishers, editors, and agents often praised or gave me credit for my voice, but told me that there was not an audience who wanted anything but my credited voice. They told me there was not an audience who, my credited voice could not reach an audience. I had nothing to give an audience. Every writer I love today, from Jesna Ward to Disha Filyar, has had similar experiences. I use every opportunity to thank Bookstagram communities because y'all have shown publishers, editors, agents, and writers that there's not only an audience for the work they neglected, y'all have shown and proved that there are communities of readers longing to critique, share, and make the work we create resonant. This is what Bookstagram communities do. They make our work and the people and the questions and the colors and the sounds and the shapes resonate. And that resonance makes our work more daring. I'm a better writer because of the critique and the love I see and feel from Bookstagram communities. They connect us to readers. They don't make writers of color or queer writers feel like we should be grateful, but they give us so much to be thankful for, and there's a difference. They remind us all that we are writers third, readers second, and folks longing for loving, rigorous community first. The question that I like to take seriously tonight, particularly in this season of despair and repair, is what do we owe Bookstagram communities? They are far from a monolith, so the question of what's owed might be different for each individual, but I hope we don't let the specificity of each person's situation obscure the fact that something, and I don't know what, is owed. My belief is that we must always find creative ways to fairly compensate folks who are unfairly compensated. My hope is that this conversation can be a model for equitable compensation. And I'd like to also say that in the absence of publishers doing right by Bookstagrammers, we writers have to continue to offer our time, books, and money to this community, not just when promoting our books, but also by promoting Bookstagrammers in their work, if we're capable, if we can. Y'all are carrying way too much, in my estimation. I'm thankful for that, but it's time we thank you by doing what folks in this nation never do. So I haven't gotten the writers okay to do this, but I think it's okay for me to say this, that we writers want to ask you what you think is fair. And we writers have to be willing to take the answers to that question seriously. We want to thank you for loving us. We want to thank you for loving our books. Y'all have changed publishing in this nation. You've changed our writing forever, and we should give you way more than credit for that.
Not you making me cry, Kiese, how dare you? Thank you so much. Let me try to get my life together. You know, I just want to say it feels nice to hear that kind of appreciation and love, because, you know, as someone who is both in the Bookstagram community, but also someone who, you know, uses the Bookstagram community for my own platform, for my own podcast, I feel so much love for everyone here. And just get a grip, Traci. Okay, we're gonna move on to questions. So the folks who are sort of my street team, they've been monitoring kind of the conversations through the chat and through the question and answer. So I'm sort of gonna pass the mic to them to kind of bring some of the questions up. I am gonna try to do gallery view. We'll see, I don't know. I maybe have to unpin myself. But I guess, Antonia, do you wanna maybe start with the questions that you're seeing from the chat?
Sure, let me scroll back up. There was a great one. Okay, if I press, let's see. Okay, someone asked, if we are not being paid for reviews and it is not a transaction, how is it that Instagram is requiring, or Instagram and publishers are requiring bookstagrammers to comply with FTC disclosure? Clearly there is some transactional nature related to this. If anyone wants to respond to that.
I think I can answer that. But I think it's because of there's a value assigned to the product, specifically the book. And so, you know, I think that it has to do with that, any kind of exchange of goods. So even though you're receiving the book, that is also included, I believe, in the FTC guidance, as actually receiving some form of compensation, specifically the book.
Okay, that's great. That's helpful. Nia, do you have a question you could bring? You're on mute, my love. It was bound to happen. Someone had to be the boomer of the day. Someone had to do it.
I'm absolutely okay with it being me. Let's say I have one here. Well, I guess we already answered that one.
Or AJ, if you have one.
Yeah, AJ, go ahead.
I
think we answered this.
I can go too.
Okay, go ahead, Chanel.
So Sarah Saba wants to know, can you speak to why book talkers are getting paid for influencing opportunities while bookstagrammers are being relied on for free labor? And I think they're referencing the New York Times article. I think it was titled, How Crying on Book Talk Sells Books. So if anyone can speak to how are you allocating funds for paying influencers on different channels and things like that?
I mean, I've read that article, and I think what that article was saying, that the content was selling the books. We specifically haven't paid any book talkers, so I can't speak on the behalf of them that way. But that's, and I know that TikTok has a platform. They have a creators platform where it makes it easy for you to identify who are different creators and what their payment is. Facebook and Instagram have never really made the platform that easy to be able to do that. Like they're not like a content, I'm not saying they're not a content creator, but you know how YouTube has a whole influencer platform and Snapchat has one, and TikTok, Facebook and Instagram doesn't really have that mechanism there, if that makes sense. But
yeah, that makes sense. Do any of the other publishing representatives, do you all know about sort of paying TikTok? Because in the article, it did say that TikTokers were being paid. And I know I saw there were some tweets going around after the article came out, a lot of social media managers who were very unhappy with the article. So it felt like maybe there's something going on, if anyone else has insight into that.
I can speak a little bit to it. We don't publish a lot that would be, you know, heralded on the TikTok platform, I would say, necessarily. But it's something that we've been looking into for titles, and we would approach it similarly that we would for Instagram, in that we would look at the book's budget and get people paid if they want to be, essentially.
I had also, to the note about that article in particular, and Traci, you had brought up, when someone is asking you to do something where you have a larger following than the author, that's a situation where it's not mutually beneficial. You would, need to be compensated in that moment. That was kind of what my impression was from that article as well, where the TikTokers that they were referring to were people who had just huge, huge followings. So in my mind, if there was someone like that on Instagram that we were reaching out to, I would expect them to probably ask for compensation if their following and influence was as large as the folks that they were talking about who were on TikTok. So that was my impression from the article.
Okay, great. AJ or Nia, do either of you have a question ready to go?
Yeah.
For the, you want to go, Nia?
No, you go ahead.
Okay. So for the bookstagrammers on the panel, how do bookstagrammers want to work with bookstores, especially smaller ones? So how can we create partnerships with bookstores?
Sorry, I should have said this. Christine had to leave because Loyalty Bookstores has an event that starts at 5 p.m. Eastern. So she did have to run out. I know there's some people who represent bookstores in the chat. And Sarah can talk because she's worked with bookstores. So go ahead, Sarah.
Sorry, I actually have a partnership going on with Loyalty right now, and I think that they're doing a great job with that. So I can speak to that. I currently am doing their chapter for their well-read Black Girl Book Club. So I do that every month, and I head the book club. I also, and they pay me for my time to do the book club and read the book and all that and provide the book. And I also am going to be going into the store to make a shelf of, my recommendations. And, we've talked about other things, but that's what we're starting with. And, Hannah, who owns Loyalty Bookstores, has made sure that she will be paying me for my time to do that because it is promotion for their store.
And did you just reach out to them, or how? I think the question had to do with sort of how to get started.
They reached out to me, but I'm local for Loyalty Bookstores, so I go in, and I also am really passionate about, reposting their events because it is an independent Black-owned bookstore. So I'm really passionate about sharing their events and all of that. So I think that they saw how passionate I was about working with small independent stores.
Okay, great. And then I just see in the chat, someone said the question is coming from a bookseller. So I think on the flip of what Sarah's saying is if you are a bookseller and you want to come correct with working with bookstagrammers, I think you should, slide into our DMs. Our DMs are, I can only speak for myself, but my DMs are very colorful, and bring folks what you're interested in. I think local people, especially as the world starts to open up again, is a great thing. And come correct with some coin in there some way. And I think you can work with people. And I do think also worth mentioning, because I know there are people who have large accounts, and then there are people who have smaller Bookstagram accounts who are also looking to make money for their work because they work just as hard. I think also, for smaller publishers or smaller bookstores or those type of things, this is where you can build those relationships and get in with people early when they're still creating their content. Because I know, just to be perfectly frank with people, the majority of my following did not come until after the murder of George Floyd. And I was working just as hard before as I am now. And I think that there are many people who work and have incredible accounts, beautiful work, people who inspire me, who might have a smaller following, who are looking to continue to build. And having a partnership with a bookstore or a publisher is the kind of thing that can be both mutually beneficial and also a way to compensate. So I think, exposure and money can go hand in hand, I think, on both sides, which we've all seen. Let's do, Nia, go ahead and do a question for us.
Okay, so one question I have, what we have in the chat is, how, as publishers, how do you select who you would like to work with? And that question is asked because they're mainly seeing non-BIPOC influencers getting both paid and unpaid opportunities to promote books by own voices, authors, as well as not. There you go.
I mean, personally, I haven't seen that because we haven't even really been in a habit of paying anyone, period. I'm a VP of multicultural marketing. I represent BIPOC authors. I'm a Black woman. I want to make sure that there's equity. And so if I'm working on projects and I'm working on partnerships, I'm making sure that that's, what's happening. And I also want to say, I want this to be not a one and done conversation. You can easily find me on LinkedIn. I'm Sienna Farris. You can reach out to me. You can message me. We can have a conversation. I've reached out to, when I started my role, a lot of people that are actually on this panel, and to try to get to know them and see what their concerns are. So I just want to say this is a dialogue, and I was coming from my heart when I was saying, like, you know, is there a mutually beneficial? And I've learned from you that it's not. Like, I don't feel like, because we don't want to be this antagonistic, like, no one is sitting in these publishing houses and saying, like, how can we take advantage of the, Bookstagram community? I think people get into these habits. They get into this, like, our budgets are limited. Like, when I'm coming from beauty, where I had budgets which I thought were small, and I'm in publishing and I see what it's like people are trying to, like, trying to make things work, but we also recognize the work that you guys are doing. So we want this to be, an open dialogue. So that's what I just want to say, that I'm happy to.
I really appreciate you saying that. And I agree. I think that there's a lot of conversations that are kind of moving within our own circles, but it's so hard to kind of like get together with everybody and like to be able to hear from folks. And obviously this isn't everybody. I mean, there's hundreds of people here. We had so many folks who RSVP'd to this. So I think, like, again, staying curious, asking those questions, keeping the transparency. It is 4:57 my time. I don't know, do the conversion. I'm in California, 3 minutes to the hour. So we're going to do one more question from the audience and then just kind of wrap it up. We started 4 minutes late, so I'm going to give us the extra 4 minutes because I budgeted for it. So AJ, I think you had your hand up. Did you have another question from the crowd?
I did, because I get this question a lot in my DMs. And so someone said, does the number of Bookstagram, the followers, matter in order to get opportunities or ARCs? So are you looking for publishers, are you looking at numbers or are you looking at content?
I can kind of jump in here. I think sort of in general, when we're looking at influencers, we're looking at consistent posting, engagement, quality of content, as much as follower numbers. So while we're looking at the followers, I think we also really acknowledge that the engagement that you have in your space, even if you have a smaller follow count, is also really valuable. And also the consistency, like, does your audience come back for you, is something that resonates for us. And especially as you're looking to build that audience, that consistency and that engagement is something that can kind of tip us over, especially when we're looking at new relationships.
Thank you. Okay, I'm told we have one more question. Antonia, go ahead.
Hi, this question comes from Jess Cruz, and Jess wants to know, can we get a list of who to reach out to if we're from the Caribbean or Africa and want an ARC that's set in our country? Like, if a book is coming out in Jamaica with the UK cover, can we get rerouted to the UK publisher and just instead of being told a flat out no?
I can just say something to that really quick. Yeah, if someone messages us and they tell me where they're from and what book that they're looking for, typically I will reach out to our rights person and say, hey, who's the publisher in this country or that, and I can respond to someone and say, hey, if you want, if you're looking for that book, here's the publisher to reach out to. So I try and do that as often as I can if I know, and if the book is being published in that country.
Okay, that was great. Thank you guys so much. I just have a few quick notes and thank yous, and then I have one more question for the chat before we get out of here. So first of all, I want to say a huge thank you to Hannah and Christine at Loyalty Bookstores for sharing their Zoom account with us. When we realized there were more people who wanted to attend than we had planned, they graciously were like, we'll do it, we'll buy more space, we'll do whatever you need. And that's exactly what they did. So please consider purchasing your next book from Loyalty as a token of your appreciation for tonight. They're an incredible Black queer-owned bookstore. They also have an event starting right after this with Marlon Peterson and Reginald Dwayne Betts, who are both freaking amazing. So if you have time, join that crowdcast. I also want to obviously thank our panelists and our guest speakers for tonight. There would have been no event without you all graciously trusting me and the organizing committee and saying, yes, I will put my face up here and answer questions and see how this goes, because this is the first time. So from the bottom of my heart, thank you so much. If you have your own podcast, what you can do is ask other people questions and then you never have to answer a question. So that's a pro tip for those of you, because I tricked you all into doing this. I also do want to give a really quick shout out to Priya Parker, who's the author of The Art of Gathering, who helped with tonight by sharing her expertise with me and helping me to facilitate this craziness. And then also I'd like to acknowledge that I did not plan this event by myself. I want to shout out the many people who helped in organizing this event. Nia J at Pages Galore, Jamie at Absorbed in Pages, Lauren at by Lauren Capeyan, Anna at Never Without a Book, Soul Kelly at The Soul Reader, Joy Melody at Smile It's Joy, Cree Miles at Cree Miles, Jared P. Woods at A Black Man Reading, AJ with Reading with Glamour, Antonia Adams, Black Girl That Reads, Theo at Theo Reads. What did I do? Who did I miss? Oh, I thought someone told me I missed someone. Where was I? Theo at Theo Reads, Noku Kanya at Pretty X Bookish, Chanello at Interested in Black Books, Lupita Aquino at Lupita Reads, Reggie Bailey at Reggie Reads, Sarah at Bookish and Black, and Alexis Sims at Lex with the Text. And lastly, for real, the last one, and I do mean this with all sincerity, I feel like I'm being so sincere tonight, which is not normally my brand, but sometimes I feel things from the bottom of my heart. And I just want to thank everyone who came out tonight to show your support for the Bookstagram community as a whole on just such a big scale. It's just a reminder of the power and the purpose of this space. I know this was only an hour, and I know there's probably a lot more questions, but I just want to say thank you for showing up, for being present, for being engaged in the chat, for bringing more to the table. I hope that we can do this again or something similar again and keep having these conversations. I certainly feel that the doors are slightly more open than we were from where we started in both directions, and I hope to really continue this. So thank you for being here. And the last question, which is for everyone, and this is going to be hard, okay? This is the hard question, which is in the chat. Can you please share the handle of one of your favorite Bookstagram accounts? And we'll end the night with this sort of major love fest, and Coco will play us out with some jams. And once you drop the handle, maybe stay around and follow some of those folks. But this has just been so great, and class dismissed, I guess. I don't know.
Thank you.
Thank you all. Thank you all so much. Everyone can go. We did it. 59 minutes. Nailed it.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Tracy.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Don't care, I'm a vibe anyway. Take a drive over by